Pete Francis here with Blues Rock Review. Joining me today is guitarist Kirk Fletcher, who has a new album coming out September 25th, My Blues Pathway. Kirk, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. So I get a chance
That's
to
great.
talk to a lot of different guitar players, and when I
Yeah.
talk to them about players today that inspire them, your name comes up quite a bit. How did you get
Oh.
started with the guitar?
Well, I started at my father's church when I was probably about 8 or 9 years old, and my older brother played guitar, and that's how I really got started with that real, like gospel music background and stuff like that, and just went from there, sort of.
And who were some of your biggest influences coming up?
Well, my brother Walter was a big influence on me, and also people like the Dixie Hummingbirds, the guitar player Howard Carroll, and Prince, Stevie Ray Vaughan, B.B. King, Albert King. Those were kind of really early influences on me. Yeah,
And you had a chance to spend some time with the Fabulous Thunderbirds.
yeah.
What did you take from that experience? What did you learn from that?
Well, the lead singer Kim Wilson I had played with in his solo band, Kim Wilson Blues Review Band, and just the whole time between that solo band and the Fabulous Thunderbirds, I really learned how to front a band, and how to just be off the cuff and keep everybody interested because he is a consummate front man, so that's one of the things I really learned and how to treat people with respect and just how to like really be a entertainer. Those are some things I learned from being my time in the T-Birds. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, kind of looking at the music scene today, who are some players that inspire you today?
Well, we got some of my friends, Josh Smith and Joe Bonamassa, Eric Gales, Blake Mills, and, Matt Schofield, Guy King, all of my buddies, as well as like Mike Landau, Larry Carlton, Chris Kane, and the list just goes on and on. You know.
When I get a chance to talk to great guitar players, I'm always curious about what their practice regimen is today. How did you get to the level where you're at today? So, today, like, how often do you practice? What's your regimen like?
Well, for me, practicing now, I don't really practice that much other than, like exercising my fingers a little bit, just making sure, I don't get that rusty. But a lot of practicing is mental practicing for me now. It's sort of like, what do I want to say? I listen to something and it inspires me, and I try and bring some of what I heard into my playing, and it took a while to get here. I don't feel that over the past 10, 15 years I've become technically better on the guitar, but I feel like I've been able to develop more of a concept of what I want to hear and things like that, and making music and making music meaning, just always playing sort of a melody or a song or trying to put chords together and just more stuff in my brain, more so than just, the physical aspect of the guitar, which is probably a bad thing, but but that's more how it is these days. Trying to play what I hear.
Yeah. When did you reach the point in your life where you said, I want to play guitar for a living?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I think I was maybe about 18. I think 17 or 18 is when I was old enough to sneak into clubs and when I was old enough to see people like Robin Ford and different people like that. And this music store that I went to as a young guy, in my teens, you know, I would hang out there all day, after I graduated from high school. So it made me sort of see other players come in and out of the store that were doing it for a living. It wasn't like, they had a day job and then they played guitar or something too or whatever. I got to actually see musicians do it and make a living doing it. So that inspired me a lot.
So, is that how it kind of clicked, actually seeing other people who are really
Yeah.
going out and doing that?
Yeah, because the way I was raised, sort of, was like, oh yeah, that's great. You want to play guitar, but you need to have a real job. So it was good. It was very inspiring to see other people, play.
So you've got the new album coming out next month. When did you start the process of this album? When did you start writing this album?
Wow. Well, I would say last October 2019, I played at the King Biscuit Blues Festival in Helena, Arkansas. And I was going to do, before this, I was starting to the wheels were turning to do another record, right?
Mhm.
And I was kind of going to do like the Kirk, funky, bluesy, kind of like this mix up of all these different things, and just, have some of my friends play on it and just sort of like this whole thing, And then I played this King Biscuit Blues Festival and something just changed. It just, I felt this urgency to really do like a more of a straight ahead like blues record and a little bit of soul and stuff like that, but kind of put the emphasis on blues. And just driving around in like Mississippi and Arkansas, and I'm from, my family's from Arkansas. I was born in LA, but my family's from Arkansas, and something kind of made me feel like I should just, really do like more of a blues record. And then after that, a couple months went by of preparation, here in Switzerland. I'm in Switzerland. So then I went to back home to LA over the Christmas holidays, 2019. And that's when I recorded it. So that's really kind of how doing that festival and just being around, Arkansas really planted the seed of my direction, to get back to the music that really inspired me when I first started going out to clubs and things.
Now you've got some covers on this album. How did you go about picking those?
Well, it was, before I used to really like when I would play with other bands and things, blues bands, it was always, certain songs were always fun, like doing Fattening Frogs for Snakes by Sonny Boy Williamson. That song was always fun. And that time I didn't even sing yet. So I picked some songs that maybe put me in a different light, like I'd rather fight than switch. I'm usually the happy-go-lucky guy, and I would never say something like that. But on this record, I kind of want to bring out another side, sort of like Juke Boy Bonner, Life Gave Me a Dirty Deal, and saying stuff like that, kind of just the more realistic, not always happy side of Kirk Fletcher. So no, that had a lot to do with, me picking certain songs, as well as writing original songs that do have more of a look at life from my perspective, and some positive and some just, thinking about things in a different way.
Yeah, how did you pick the title for this album?
Well, My Blues Pathway, it's sort of like, I've done all this different stuff and I've done these different kinds of music and everything, but, I'm most comfortable playing blues, so it was time for me just, my pathway led me right back to the music that made me excited about music in the first place. When I first started going to clubs, I would be so excited to go and see some of my favorite players like Chris Kane. My first blues concert was Albert Collins at the Long Beach Blues Festival. So, all of this stuff, kind of just, it was like, wow, now it's time to just go back, and really play the blues, because a whole generation has come since then, basically, and I didn't really think about it like that. But once again, that Helena, Arkansas King Biscuit Blues Festival kind of made me think about it in a different way.
Yeah. Did you have any specific goal for this album?
Well, I wanted to do a blues record, and I wanted to do Chicago blues and kind of marry that with some of the more 80s things that I heard growing up in real time, like Robert Cray, Stevie Ray Vaughan. I didn't really play any Stevie Ray Vaughan, but just his production of his records. I thought about, hey, let's make a blues record, but let's make it sound really, really good. Let's record it really well, and let's really put our tuxedo on, make it really, produce it, in a way. Because I feel that, a lot of times blues records are either, really raw, which I love, or they're really like compressed and different things like that. So I just kind of want to make it a little slicker, but still do, Chicago blues and soul and stuff like that. Kind of a marriage, but it's kind of, I was really inspired by Robert Cray a lot on this record.
Yeah, and you had mentioned Stevie Ray Vaughan. We're coming up on the 30th anniversary of his death. What did his music mean to you?
Oh man, I mean Stevie Ray Vaughan was like that was like real time. I mean he was like our guitar hero. A lot of my friends and everything. He was just in our generation, and he was so good about bringing like older, talking about older musicians and always giving it up to like the older generation. So it inspired us to look back, in his way, because he was so amazing, and pretty much all of my friends were inspired by him of my age group. So he was like our era Jimi Hendrix, like our big guitar star, and it was fantastic that he played blues too.
Absolutely. Now, you had mentioned earlier in your career you didn't sing. So, what was the turning point where you said, I'm going to start singing?
Well, it was a few different things. It was like I was wanting to do my own stuff, do my own songs and things like that in front of the band myself. And then I saw people like, early on, I saw people like Nick Kern, a friend of mine, and also Gary Clark Jr. I would see Gary Clark Jr. in clubs, in Texas back, quite a few years ago now, and it was so inspiring because this young man was his own man, and it was so inspiring. He just done all different kinds of songs, and I was still, playing guitar. So I'm like, man, this guy can play amazing, sing amazing, and do his own songs. And that really inspired me to kind of just take the leap and to start singing a little bit. Then it kept going.
Right. Now, obviously, the music world and really just the world in general has changed so much with the pandemic. I guess what's been the biggest change for you as a musician through this time?
Well, for most of my life, most of my adult life, you always feel that there's something, if it's just a gig at the end of the week, you have your local gig or you have your tour or you're playing with somebody. And then for to not really know what's going on completely changed everything, to have to think about that, because ever since I was a child, I played guitar out. Even in my father's church, I'm still playing in front of people. So to not have that really and think about something totally different was quite overwhelming. But I think after a few months, I said, like this YouTube thing and doing little videos and lessons and things like that, I want to do this my way. I don't want to just do, some weird thing. So I kind of, just channel this into doing my perspective on guitar playing, blues music, what I really want to talk about, what was really close to my heart. And it turned out to be something that really, kept me going during all of this, and listening to records that I've loved that either I used to listen to when I was younger or maybe different records by some of the artists or maybe finding new music and things. I mean, new music meaning old music, but new old music mostly, and that really kind of, that's really kind of keeping me going, through all this and, messing around with guitars and finding out what do I really want, what instrument do I want to use, and, what kind of voice do I want to have, and thinking about more so a voice, my voice, instead of, oh, well, this is the most versatile guitar or whatever. So it's been really, I've just been really, fortunate to be able to have that outlet during this time. And here I live in Switzerland, and we are starting to kind of have a gig or two, a little bit. So, I played one gig in Italy a couple of weeks ago, and that was really cool to have a gig. And if you know that there's a possibility of a gig in the future, it just makes your mind think in a different way, you know. So
Yeah,
it's
I was going to ask, what's kind of the concern level right now in terms of touring? Because right now it's just there's so many question marks, and we don't even know if in 2021 they're going to be able to be proper touring.
yeah, it's hard to really say. I mean, I really didn't tour that heavy. I done a lot of like spot dates. I would go out for the weekend and play a lot. So it didn't affect me as much as it did like players like, Joe Bonamassa, my friend Joe Bonamassa. I mean, he's like touring all the time. So that's pretty heavy. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know about, 2021. Everybody's thinking about 2021 as, we're going to reschedule for 2021. I just take it one day at a time, really. If a gig comes up, I'll do it, and we just have to take it, one day at a time, and I'll just try and focus on other things like maybe private lessons, doing my YouTube videos, and different things like that. I mean, that's about all we can do, I guess.
Yeah, what do you think is the silver lining that we can take out of this?
Well, I learned a whole lot of things, during this time, like even about the YouTube videos and, home recording, mostly for like other people, playing on other people's music. And I know the creative process is starting to come back around for me, in a way. So I definitely see I've learned a lot, out of necessity, because I want to make music and I want to be creative. I know at some point more and more. So, I did learn a lot.
All right, My Blues Pathway comes out September 25th. Anything you want to add before we let you go?
I just want to say thank you. And you can follow me on Instagram, Kirk Fletcher Music, and my website is kirkfletcherband.com. And hopefully we'll all get through this together, and I'll be back out playing, hopefully, and all of my friends.
Perfect, Kirk. Thanks so much for your time. Good luck with the album.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.